they were told to watch me when I came in at the theatre. We went to a theatre called the Peterborough, yeah, and they'd never worked in England outside of Liverpool. They hadn't worked anywhere. So when we did the actual show, they didn't do a rehearsal for some reason. They didn't get there till late, but they said, "Oh, don't worry about that," because they were used to just playing a track. Yeah. So when they did do the rehearsal, the show actually, the guy introduced them, the curtain opened up, and they started, and I thought, bloody hell, that sound is so loud. And I had visions of the manager coming down to me and telling me, we've got to get them off the show, because people would get up and walking out. Really? And they were dreadful. They really were.
You were once George Harrison's girlfriend, then Paul McCartney's girlfriend.
Well, hang on, you missed out.
Who have you missed out?
You've missed out Frank Ifield. I was two-time in all three of them.
But the Beatles had a particular savagery in the way that they could take the mickey out of people, but Bernie put up with it and rode it and hung around, and he was the butt of a few jokes but didn't mind, and in the process got to hang around with them. He was in the van with them when they went down to Peterborough for the Frank Ifield show, which was...
The whole way there, John was saying to Paul, "You're banging Frank's girlfriend. What's going to happen when we get in the dressing room? There's not going to be a punch-up, is there? He's a big fucker, that Frank."
He had with him a rough acetate, of the session. And I put on my record player and played Please Please Me, and I just hit the ceiling. And he said, "What do I think?" I said, "I think it must be number one." I picked up the telephone and I phoned a friend of mine, Philip Jones, who was the light entertainment producer at ABC Television, and he was just starting a show called Thank You Lucky Stars. The break started to come virtually from that moment. And Phil was in his office. "Hi, Phil, how are you? I've got something to play you. Listen to this." And I played it to him over the phone. And again, Brian Epstein was a little taken aback with this very direct kind of promotion. But of course, this is the way I've always worked. And I played Please Please Me to Phil, and he said, "Who is it?" And I said, "A group called the Beatles. Not many people have heard of them, except that they're uncrowned kings in the north of England." He said, "When's the record coming out?" I said, "Brian, when's the record coming out?" And he said, "It's coming out the second Friday in January." So Phil Jones gave me the date for television appearance for Thank You Lucky Stars for the Beatles for the second Saturday in January.
In early days, writing something like Saw Her Standing There, I mean, it's just one remembrance of mine of John kind of vetoing a line of mine. We used to do it with each other, but just one I remember. She was just 17, never been a beauty queen. He said, "Oh, stop! No." Way, and that one. And then it changed to, "You know what I mean."
Throughout that evening at this pub, the role of host for the evening was immediately assumed and played very, very well by Paul McCartney. My first lingering memory of him is how he went round us all, round the rest of the group, round myself and my wife and indeed Brian Epstein, the roadies and everybody, and asked them what they wanted to drink. And then said, "Right, it's doubles all round, eh, lads?" And off he went to the bar and he ordered up all these drinks. And when the guy behind the bar eventually gave him the price, and £2.14 and threepence or whatever it was, only then did Paul go, "Brian." So although the genial host Paul McCartney had been seen to host the occasion and buy a round in, it was Brian Epstein who actually paid for it, picked up the tab.
George and Judy took the train to Liverpool on Wednesday the 12th of December. Brian treated them to dinner, and Bob Wooler watched the tall gentleman from EMI walking around the empty cavern, clapping his hands and testing the echo. Dissatisfaction with this, plus concern at the amount of water condensing off the walls and ceiling, and alarm over general safety, a fainted girl was passed prone over George and Judy's heads while the Beatles played, made George decide this wasn't a suitable venue for his needs. "The cavern would have been a dreadful place to do it," he'd explain. "It wasn't a very good acoustic environment. Not a very comfortable environment at all, really. Very grotty."
I was working for Brian Epstein, doing a normal day job, but I also had to do the fan club of a night. Silly me, I gave out my home address as the fan club address. The postman knocked on the door and he said to me, "Who gave this address out? You've got 200 letters here." And I said, "Sorry, we'll do it again."
And I said, oh, your marvellous sound was perfect, but you have no personality. And they didn't like that at all. I said, what? Ringo said, have I any personality? I said, well, yes, occasionally you flash out and you could be a massive personality, but you're all deadpan. You haven't got the personality of the Hurricanes. And they said, oh, why hasn't he got anywhere? And I said, well, he hasn't got your talent and your music behind him, but they've got personality. So they weren't very pleased. But George and John, as they left the house, they went out with their arms around one another, kicking up like the Follies, going, hey, hey, honey, don't, taking the mickey out of Rory, but in good humour, saying, how do you think of that? But the next time they were on, I was watching them, I thought, well, they all smile a bit better. I wish George would smile. And with that, he smiled. And that night, they didn't come because they were going to Hamburg. He phoned me up and said, what do you think of us tonight, Marstorm? I said, you were a lot better. He said, I was just playing away then. I thought, I'd better smile because Marstorm will tell me off.